Hey everyone, welcome back to Yan is Awake. We have another video in our special interview series for Pride Month 2022. Would you like to introduce your name and pronouns?
Yeah, I'm Victoria Hernandez, and my pronouns are she, her.
Could you share a bit about your background growing up?
Sure. I was born in Juarez, Mexico, and then at 3 months, I moved to Sacramento, California. After 10 years there, my family moved to El Paso, Texas. I have one younger brother, and I went to college at Utah,
Cool.
and now work at JP Morgan.
Was there a moment in your childhood growing up where you felt like you might be different from other people, or maybe where you started noticing other people treating you differently or pointing things out?
One of the first things that definitely comes to mind was when I was a lot younger, one of my friends would call me a drama queen a lot. And I always felt really weird about that because I didn't feel like I was. I always felt like I was perfectly reasonable with my emotions. But I don't know if that's just me ascribing meaning to a memory I have. I think the first major moment was in high school. I had a crisis of masculinity where I realized that all the archetypes and cliches that people ascribe to masculinity they didn't gel with me. I didn't feel particular identification with any of them. And the more I pulled at that thread, the more I realized just how much of a house of cards that was all built on. And so at the time, I kind of brushed it off and was like, no, I'm a man because I say I am, right? That's enough of a reason. But as time passed, I realized that didn't have to be the case, you know?
It's interesting because you were reclaiming your autonomy of I'm something because I say I am and that's how I feel, but then the realization of choice. Do you think part of that was because you didn't see representation that you resonated with? Do you think you just needed more time to grow or maybe get out of the house?
Maybe. It's definitely one of those things that I do wonder about. I know that something that was really big for me was discovering a YouTuber called ContraPoints, who's trans woman. I love ContraPoints. We stand. And when I found her, I remember just watching her and going through her stuff, and I was just like, wow, I can feel some sort of relation there. And I was like, one, that's very parasocial, that's gross, but also two, I wonder why I feel this almost empathy to what's going on there. And that was part of the beginning of me starting to question things and me starting to go, like you said, oh, I have a choice in this, right? Just because I say I'm one thing doesn't mean it has to be that way. It's not so much that I felt like that needed to be the case, it's more so that that's just what I've been told my whole life. The fact that it could be something else, that it didn't have to be that way, I guess it never really crossed my mind until it just did.
It had to come at its own pace. I mean, you can't force it.
Right.
There's the fear-mongering fallacy oh, if there's LGBT plus representation, everyone's going to become LGBT plus. And that's certainly not the case.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Well, at what point did you start leaning more into those investigative feelings when you found ContraPoints and were maybe starting to revisit those thoughts?
A pretty big milestone was around Christmas. One of my friends, her birthday is 2 days before Christmas. And so we had a party and she got this makeup thing. So she was transitioning all her makeup from one location to another. And she's like, I'm gonna do your guys' makeup, right? And so my other friend was like, well, you can't do mine because my dad would kill me. And so I step up and I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. My parents don't care. And so she did it. And I remember then she turned around the mirror to be like, okay, here you go. And I remember just looking in the mirror and being like, holy shit, this feels right in a very visceral way that I was not at all expecting. And yeah, I remember that moment being a really big turning point, being one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is more than what I originally thought.
Not everyone has distinct moments. Some people, when I ask them that, they're like, oh, it was a gradual buildup of small things over time. That's very cool that you had that experience where you're like, ah, this is correct.
Right, exactly. It's kind of embarrassing. I kind of don't like talking about it, but someone might relate to it. I also, through video games a lot. I remember in Breath of the Wild when you have to go into Gerudo Village and you have to cross-dress to get in there. I remember when they did the little zoom out on Link and he was dressed as a girl. I remember something in my head was just like, oh, I kind of like this. And it's like, okay, this could mean a few things. I could be into cross-dressing, I could be trans, maybe it's drag. I'm going to choose not to think about it and just continue playing the game. But then I found that like at every opportunity that I could get away with it, I wear the armor again, the female armor. And I don't know, just something about that felt right in a strange way that I wasn't expecting to. Being able to like, I guess, transition from being male Link to female Link, something about that just felt right in a weird way. This could be the beginning of something, or it could not be, and I don't know how much importance I want to place in something this silly.
It is very silly, and it's also not silly. Like, it's very real. So it's only as significant as you want to make it be. I think that does resonate with a lot of people. It certainly resonates with me too, where on Snapchat, I remember changing my Bitmoji model from the like more feminine model to the more masculine model. A lot of the cosmetic options actually are very different. And that bothered me. I was like mad about it.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I've started now playing Pokemon games as the female protagonist, and me and my best friend will oftentimes compare the difference in outfits, and he'll often get mad that the female avatar has just like a wider range of things to choose from the males, and I just always find that really funny.
Was there a moment that you had to yourself where you did start more directly confronting these like gender feelings, I guess?
See, this I think was gradual. I spent a lot of time in college thinking about this after I had some of these moments. I don't remember when was the first time I told someone I think I want to be Victoria, not Victor. I'm not sure exactly what it was that flipped that switch, but I do know that I spent a lot of time in college like thinking about this. It was something that I thought about like almost every day. Even if it was just for like 5 minutes, I just think like, who am I, and what does this even mean? Why am I having these feelings in the first place? I think that was the biggest thing, because obviously there has to be something there in order to be having these feelings in the first place. That was really big for me, because if it really was nothing, like I kind of wanted it to be for a little bit, it'd be much more easy to reconcile or to come to terms with. It was one of those things where every day a little bit I think about it, and I kind of sort of start realizing that no, I really do feel this way. One thing that was really big for me was reading Gigi Gorgeous's book, He Said, She Said. And as I read through the book, I remember he talked about a lot of like feelings and emotions that resonated with me. I have a friend who has a younger brother who's trans. I talked to him about it, and it was kind of just like all these different experiences that kind of just like talked about similar emotions that I resonated with, and that kind of forced me to realize, oh, that's what this is. There are other people who have gone through this, and being able to like see how they dealt with it and seeing that they were feeling the same thing I was, that I think that's what made the biggest difference.
Do you have any advice for anyone who's questioning?
The one thing I'd say is take your time. I know that one of the things that I felt kind of pressured by was like this idea that how much left of my life am I gonna have once I do make this decision? Because it's a pretty big decision, right? And sometimes even now I find myself like thinking about that. Like I want to get it all done now. Like I regret not being able to do it sooner, but I took the time that I felt I needed and then came to the decision to first come out to my family, then in the workplace, and then now I'm, starting hormones and everything. It's very tempting to want to rush everything, to want to get to everything now all at once. But you can't do that, right? You have to remember that things take their time. That's okay, especially because it can feel very overwhelming, but if you give yourself the space to feel what you feel, you'll get there eventually.
I think giving yourself the space to experiment and try things, surround yourself with a community or seek out safety if you're currently not in like a safe place to maybe do the things you want to do. It's not that you're failing yourself. Life is a marathon, right? We can't be sprinting all the time.
I think we kind of just have this tendency that we want things to be done now, and I feel like sometimes the space and time can be really helpful.
But it is understanding too, if you feel like you've been restricted your whole life, the panic of when will I ever get to do what I want?
Right.
Even if you can't imagine your future, you can still have one. You can continue to live your life beyond your like field of view, even if you don't know how. Thank you so much for being one of my guests. I'm so happy that you agreed to do this. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's watched all the way through. And if you are into LGBT plus talks or indie games, please come visit me on my channel and see the other videos that I have for you to check out. Bye. I remember asking my mom, like, what's a transgender person?
Why does it need to be this way? Why am I expected to act a certain way when that feels contrary to who I am?
Am I upset about being a woman because I'm not a woman? Or am I upset about being a woman because of sexism? What does it even mean to be a woman? So,
Right, exactly. We can unpack that all day.